Hi, I'm Liss, and the name of the program is The Way to Go. I invite you to join me as we explore places to go and things to do. There's a lot of excitement in the air today because we're going to explore Yankee Stadium. My guest today is Tony Morante of the New York Yankees. And Tony conducts tours of Yankee Stadium that are open to the public. And we're going to go behind the scenes and talk about what's happening, how you can get on a tour, how you can go see Yankee Stadium. I think you're going to be thrilled with what you hear today. Tony, welcome to the show. It's really exciting for me to have you here because I recently went on a tour with a group through the Bronx Historical Society, and I was just intrigued by all that you have to say. But okay, so I was in a group of people and of all ages, and I saw the looks on the faces of the people as they were really behind the scenes. What is it with these tours? What is the greatest thrill that people have when they get inside Yankee Stadium?
Well, first of all, I'd like to thank you for inviting me here today. The most important thing about being on a tour at Yankee Stadium is being on the field, in the dugout, in the clubhouse. It depends on the person. The sense of being that you're there, that you are on these hallowed grounds.
Hallowed grounds. That's a wonderful expression.
You have revered through your life, you've seen on television, and all of a sudden you transcended into the field of dreams for many people,
yes,
including me.
Yes.
I started going there in 1948, and I started working there actually in 1958. And I wanted to share this when I had the opportunity. And the way that came about was through the Historical Society back in 1979, just relaying the information that I had compiled over the years to the director of the Historical Society. And he said, well, Tony, could you do that for a few people? And I said, well, sure. And that's the way the tour started. And my first tour consisted of about 130 people, including the borough president. I was
16 years
scared
ago?
out of my wits, but
16 years ago?
Well, yes, and this was the 16th annual tour that we had that you were on.
Always done on Election Day, by the way?
Yes, and in recognition of him asking me to do that tour, yeah.
But for the past 3 or 4 years, these tours have been open to the public.
Oh, yes.
And the way it's done, and we'll go into more details about this later on, is groups of 12 or more, and they just have to call to the Yankee Stadium, and we'll give a telephone number, so people should get a pencil and paper ready to write down. But let's talk. Let's go through the tour. Let's walk. It starts. You arrive there, and because it's only done on days when there are no games, so there's a parking lot right at the executive entrance.
Right, the players' lot.
And the players park there in that particular lot.
But they're not there naturally.
Of course. So that's what the lot is. Yeah. And then you walk through the same executive office door that George Steinbrenner walks through.
George Steinbrenner, presidents and governors and heads of state and all of the exciting luminaries that come out for World Series, and you're walking through those same doors.
Ball players come in that door too?
Ball players come into the press gate, which is adjacent to the doors that you walk through. Yeah.
Okay, so let's walk through this now. We're inside, and the first thing that you did on the tour is you took us out and sat us in a box right on the edge of the field, on third base side, and gave us some of the background.
Right.
And why don't we talk about some of that background now?
Well, you first have to realize that baseball has been around since about 1839. That's the date that most people want to refer the origins of baseball coming together. And for the next few years, the Knickerbockers had been playing on the Lower East Side of Manhattan, eventually moving up to
These are the baseball Knickerbockers, not the basketball Knickerbockers.
No, but the Knickerbockers were the first team that was actually pulled together and eventually started playing ball on the Lower East Side and then moved over to Elysian Field in Hoboken because they needed more room. The city was growing. And then there were teams like the Excelsiors from Brooklyn, the Eckfords and the Mutuals, and from Morrisania. There were a lot of different teams.
What was this span of time that this was happening?
This was in the 40s, going into the 50s, and then the 60s. But as baseball was taking its hold on American life and American culture at that time, because the President Lincoln, for example, was in the process of being informed that he was nominated for the Republican candidacy. Yeah. Now, I'm sure that he had heard about it by Western Union the day before. So when the delegates came from Washington and they caught Mr. Lincoln in his home, he told them, well, you gentlemen are just going to have to wait until I get this hit. So he was playing ball then. So that was the first reference to baseball in a more national sense. And it took it a firmer grip on becoming the national pastime that was the most popular sport in the 19th century.
How did it evolve into the New York Yankees and Yankee Stadium?
Well, what happened was there were many leagues that tried to penetrate the National League, which had its founding in 1876, and that's why it's called the Senior Circuit. But there was a gentleman by the name of Ben Johnson who had success in the minor leagues called the Western League. And he felt that he wanted to get another league to go up against the National League where his teams could make money. So he got together with the teams from Baltimore, Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, Detroit, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, and Washington. There were 8 teams. And he pulled these together in 1901, which was no easy feat at that time because there was a lot of resistance from the National League. But eventually he succeeded, and unfortunately he didn't have a team in New York. He had promised a gentleman by the name of John McGraw was looking forward to becoming the manager of the New York franchise, hoping that it would evolve. And what happened with Mr. McGraw was that he was a ball player for the Baltimore Orioles in the National League. And he, unfortunately, was also a terrific umpire baiter. Now, an umpire baiter is somebody that vilifies the umpire.
Do they still exist today?
Well, you have them to a much lesser degree, but this was commonplace then. They would actually get into physical battles. And you keep in mind that there was only one umpire, so he's calling balls and strikes, and he's calling people out at second and third base, and naturally you're going to have some controversy if you're that far away from the plate. But when Ben Johnson formed his American League, he insisted that they treat the umpires normally and not so much of this baiting, so to speak. This didn't sit well with John McGraw. And further exacerbated that situation was that he didn't get the offering of the franchise in New York. It was offered to Clark Griffith, okay? So McGraw, with this in mind, and the suspensions that ensued in 1902 because of his umpire baiting, was coming into contact with a guy by the name of John Brush, who was the head of the National League Executive Committee. And they started depleting his Baltimore stock by selling the better ball players to the Giants in the National League. By the end of July, there was no more Baltimore team to field. So McGraw had gone...
I'm still trying to figure out where the New York Yankees come in.
This is where it's coming in. This is right where it's coming in. So this is creating the void for the New York Yankees. As McGraw left and the Baltimore Orioles left, this left a void for a New York franchise in the American League. And for the cost of about $18,000, 2 gentlemen by the name of Big Bill Devery, who was perhaps the most corrupt police commissioner that New York had up until that time, and a restaurateur bon vivant by the name of Frankie Farrell had purchased the team at $18,000.
Did they call it the Yankees at that?
No, it was called the Highlanders.
And then what happened?
Well, in 1903, they had a pretty decent team. They came in 5th place in their first year. 1904 was the big year that came about in the game already, because the Yankees went into the last game of the season and they could have won the pennant and played the Giants that year. But on the last game of the season, there was a gentleman by the name of Chadwick, Jack Chesbro, Jack Chesbro, who had won 41 games. He started 51 games and completed 48 of them through a wild pitch that brought in the winning run to give Boston the pennant. Boston wanted to play the Giants for the World Series in that year. But if you look in your records, you'll see there was no World Series in 1904. I bet you didn't know that.
No, I didn't.
And it's because the Giants didn't want to recognize Van Johnson, and this was McGraw's team, and this was his way of getting back at Van Johnson. So there was no World Series in 1904.
So who do we get back at in not having World Series in 1994?
Well, that's a whole other ballgame.
That's another whole ballgame.
It's later on in history.
We talk about the Yankee Stadium as being the house that Ruth built, and I'm sure there's some background in that's interesting.
Sure. Well, Babe Ruth came to the Yankees in a funny way, in that the owner of the Red Sox, keep in mind that in the decade prior to 1920, in the teens, the Red Sox had won 4 World Series, 1912, 1915, 16, and 18. So they had some great ball players. However, the owner of the Red Sox was also a producer of Broadway plays. Unfortunately, his plays weren't doing that well. So he kept on turning to his friend Jacob Rupert, who was a beer magnate, and he would ask Rupert for money from time to time. After one of his plays was failing, he turned to Rupert and he said, I need some money. Wow. And Rupert was intent on bringing a winner to New York. So he said, well, I'm looking for talent. I need ball players. He said, well, what could we do? So he struck a deal, and they got Babe Ruth to the New York Yankees in 1920 for about $125,000 and a $300,000 loan with Fenway Park as collateral. Huh. And that's when Babe Ruth came to the Yankees, and it turned the game around. As you are probably aware, that you had the war years, you had another league that was in operation, the Federal League, which was taking away some of the people from baseball, so attendance was decreasing until Babe Ruth came into the big fishbowl of New York, and the people loved him. He was such a gregarious, fun-loving guy, but he would hit a lot of home runs. In 1919, he had led the league with 29 home runs, and then the first year he came to the New York Yankees with the new rules as far as baseballs were concerned that were implemented by Judge Landis. Judge Kennesaw Mountain Landis said that we're going to play with clean balls now. Prior to that, they were scuffing them up and marking them, and it was favoring the pitcher all the time. So with the new balls...
You mentioned hallowed ground, and before we continue, I do want to just take a moment here to remind our audience that we're talking today with Tony Morante of the New York Yankees, and we're talking about hallowed ground, Yankee Stadium, and behind-the-scenes tours that he conducts for the public, and to which you're invited to come. Let's do the tour, okay? Sure. So we sit in the stands, and some of the background that you've been giving us here, of course, in greater depth you talk about. And then you take us down onto the field, and what happens after that?
Well, first thing I like to point out to the people is that, hey, this field's not all as flat as it looks. And I point to the contours in the field. And
when you're down there on the level, you see that.
I sit the people in the dugout, and we get a sense of what it's like being a ball player, looking out on the field.
So we go out of the stands and we go into the dugout. Right. The dugout where the ball players actually sit, and people don't have a chance to get into the dugout, certainly. You see it on television. You see it from a distance when you go into a ball game. To actually get up there and sit there and experience it and look from under the cover and see it, and you give some of the background. I mean, that is just being there, I think, is a tremendous experience. And then after that, then we actually get to walk on the field and walk out to center field, right? And again, that term that you just used, hallowed ground, you're actually walking on the field where the players walk, and you're out. And the size of it is overwhelming, too, the vastness of the stadium that you see as you make that long walk out to center field. And then what's out in center field?
Well, in left center is where the monuments are. That's why it's called Monument Park. And the monuments arrived starting in 1932 when they wanted to acknowledge Miller Huggins, who had done a great job managing the first dynasties of the New York Yankees when he won the pennants 21, 22, and 23, and how he managed to take Babe Ruth into tow for most of the years, not all of them, and they honored him. He was the first to be honored with a monument in 1932. Lou Gehrig in 1941, the pride of the New York Yankees, the Iron Horse, and then naturally Babe Ruth in 1949. Those three monuments were actually part of the playing field up until 1973.
They were on the field.
Right in center field, in deep center field. As you may be aware, that the center field at that time was 461 feet away from home plate, which was quite a poke, and it gave vent to the theory that that whole left center field area was known as Death Valley. The reason it was Death Valley was because a lot of balls that were hit and caught out there would have been home runs in other ballparks.
Yes.
You take a guy like Joe D, hit only 371 lifetime homers being a right-handed hitter.
Yes.
Babe Ruth, 714. I don't think that's relative here, you know.
Yes.
It's just that that area was such a tremendous post.
So they moved the fence in.
Moved the fences in and created the Monument Park.
And the Monument Park. And in the Monument Park are some of the retired numbers.
14 retired numbers.
And the plaques.
Right.
For honoring some of the really outstanding people associated with the team.
Not only with the team, we have plaques to the two popes, because the stadium was not only used for baseball. There were 30 professional championship fights. We had the halcyon years of the New York Giants there when they beat the Chicago Bears in 1956. The greatest football game ever, the sudden death overtime with Baltimore in 1958 on December 28th, broke my heart as I watched Alan Amici, the halfback, go through the Giant line like there was nothing there, and score the touchdown that sealed the fate of the Giants.
This Monument Park, is it open to the public, not only on the tours, but during the game, when the games are played? How does that work?
When the gates are open, you're allowed to go out into the Monument Park area, and you can gain access through the left field stands. And up until 45 minutes prior to the game.
Every game?
Every day.
Every game.
And you can visit these plaques and monuments and just get that feeling of, as we call those hallowed grounds.
Let's move on now. From Monument Park, then you took us into the most, to me, the most sacred of places, the actual locker room.
Yeah.
The actual locker room, and see where the now the ball players come there early. Is that what it is normally?
Yes. Well, they're there early to prepare themselves both mentally and physically for the game. For a night game at 7:30, they're there at 3:30. So that in that 4-hour period, they have time to either answer mail, sign balls, take care of physical ailments, or if they want to take extra batting practice, they have that facility. If it's raining, they could go into the area all the way in right field where we have a batting cage, and they could help sharpen their eye. I remember Don Mattingly working with that ball tee 3 o'clock, 3:30 in the afternoon, and just stay there and just to keep his eye on the ball. And so they also have the trainer's room if you had some minor ailments. That was there, and actually the manager's coach's room. But that's where all the celebrations were in those great years, and we were fortunate to have some.
How many years were those?
We had 22 World Championships. Not all of them were won at Yankee Stadium, so the celebration may have taken place in another ballpark, but for the most part, that's where most of the Yankee victories were.
Pinstripes are something, of course, that are associated with the Yankees. You see so many more colors now, but Yankees and pinstripes are synonymous, I guess, and it's something that people identify with.
Good point. Good point. The Cubs were the first team that wore the pinstripes in 1906. The Yankees adopted them in 1909 and became an official part of the uniform in 1913, but they never changed. The only thing that changed with the home Yankee uniform was the material. So from those heavy wools and flannels that they had, could you imagine playing a double header on a hot afternoon with those flannels on? You're just adding poundage there. But now that the advent of polyester, of which the uniforms are made nowadays, but we still have the same pinstripes. We don't have numbers or the names on the backs as a lot of the teams do. It's the same uniform.
It's traditional.
Tradition.
Before we go upstairs into Exalted Country, let's tell our audience what number they could telephone in order to make an appointment for a tour, understanding, of course, that you have to have 12 people or more in the group. And it could be any group, youngsters, adults, up to the people, right? But it has to be 12. What is the telephone number?
It's 718-293-6013.
And we'll give you an opportunity to repeat that a little later, and then we'll put it in the closing credits as well so that people can write that down and make those arrangements.
Sure.
Okay, so now as we continue our tour, we leave Monument Park and we go up to the press, leave the locker room and we go up to the press box.
Right.
Now, the press box is probably the best view that you can get,
sure.
right? And how does it work? Does the press just come in there and sit down, decide where they're going to sit? How does that work?
Well, first of all, there are many different types of credentials that you need to gain access to the press box. It's an area in the Yankee Stadium that has high security. The press has their nameplates all set up in front of them, all the newspapers in the metropolitan area, plus the visiting newspapers that come. So you have your designated spot. And the press box evolved from what was actually a box that was along the first or third base lines in the old days. I'm talking about in the 1860s when Henry Chadwick introduced the press and the first box score. So it eventually evolved from that, where the box moved from the field into the stands and up to these parapets or beautiful areas to watch the game from, so that the press had access to first the air conditioning and heating and the closed-circuit TV.
It's a great location, and of course the owner's boxes nearby, right, and the scoreboard control. And that was interesting, by the way, when I did go on the tour with the Bronx Historical Society. The scoreboard had a message on that said, welcome, Bronx Historical Society. Mm-hmm. So how does that work? I mean, you can put up anything, you have video up on there. How does that all work?
Well, it's a very important part of the game, the entertainment factor. What happens between the innings and when there are dull spots during the game, there's a crew that's headed by Mr. John Franzone that has to put up commercials, has to put up welcomes, birthday greetings, anniversaries, and it also shows a lot of instant replays, none of which would undermine what an umpire's ruling would be, because then they could close the board down. There's American League rules stipulating that. But with the 2-minute delay, the mandatory 2-minute delay from the last out of one inning until the next batter gets up in the batter's box, there has to be at least 4 30-second commercials. All this starts like 8 o'clock in the morning for a night game. And the
all that
crew of
preparation.
4 guys, 4 people that are there.
And the broadcasters are up there too?
Broadcasters,
radio?
That's Communications Central up there.
That whole setup is in there.
Mm-hmm. And naturally, all of the lights and sounds. You have Eddie Layton and the organ up there. Bob Shepard is right there. The dulcet tones of Bob Shepard, who have been with us since 1951, all emanate from that area. So that's a very important part of the game. How would we find out what happened the day before if we didn't get it from the press?
Where are the TV cameras?
TV cameras are located all over the ballpark. They're basically about 7 cameras, and the number 1 camera is right behind home plate. So what I do with the people, when we get out into the dugout in the beginning, I show them the contours in the field. But then when you get up into the press box and you see the number 1 camera, you can see how, once again, the field looks flat. But it's an everlasting impression. And there are cameras by first base in the dugout and third base. There are also cameras in the loge section by first and third base, in center field, and there's 1 remote camera all the way up in deep left field.
Remote meaning?
Remote is that it's on top of the stands and it takes pictures of the environment. In other words, you could see the George Washington Bridge or a beautiful shot of the Manhattan skyline, and it shows the environment there.
What's the best time to do a tour?
The tours basically are running between 10 o'clock in the morning till about 2 in the afternoon. And
year-round?
year-round, other than the strike right now.
Of course.
When the team isn't in town, and that's Monday through Friday only.
So it's even in off-season as well.
Oh, absolutely. A lot of school groups, you want to show the history of our great facility that we have and talk to the kids about it. And
what are some of the reactions that you get when you take people on tours?
The letters that I get from the children are so touching sometimes. It's just that they appreciate it so much, the feeling, but so do I. The feeling that I get, I just hope I could impart some of that to the children and share some of that, I should say. It's a very rewarding feeling.
It's unique, isn't it, this tour? There are a lot of behind-the-scenes tours of museums and behind-the-scenes tours of Carnegie Hall, Metropolitan Opera. But there's something different about Yankee Stadium. There's something different. There's a special glamour that goes beyond everything.
When you talk about names, Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio, Mickey Mantle, a lot of people are in awe. Whether you're a Yankee fan or not, you have to give that credit. They were great ball players.
Let's give that telephone number once again.
It's 718-293-6013.
And people will call and make the arrangements and pick a time and give them all the details on how to do this.
Right.
And what do you find? Is the appeal greater to adults or children? There's a lot of nostalgia, of course.
It's the same, Norm. It's the same. Some of the adults come back time after time. They're making it annual pilgrimages now to come out. And their wives give them these tours as birthday parties. So I can't say that the children like it any more than the adults. The adults maybe appreciate it a little more than the children, but there's something lasting there for the kids, too.
Well, thanks very much. This tour of Yankee Stadium, being there physically and then doing it again on the program has been great. You are a great source of knowledge, a great source of information. I know that the Yankees are, for many, many years, as you've said, you've been associated with them. It's part of your life. And you've brought it all to life for us, and I'm very grateful to you for doing it. And thanks for coming. I hope a lot of people will come and go behind the scenes at Yankee Stadium.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share that with you.
And I'm Norman Liss, and the name of the program is The Way to Go. Until next time at this time, enjoy yourself.